Hey, kind of doing this video on the fly because it's Wednesday morning. As you can see from the clock in the background, it's about 7:45. I'm supposed to be at work, but one of our cats is out and won't come back in, and my wife doesn't like to leave the cats out because we live in the woods, blah blah blah. So I'm waiting for the cat to get tired of what he's doing and hopefully come in and eat some food so I can trap him in the house. So I know I have a few minutes, so I thought, well, gee, I should probably do this video I've been trying to do. It'll take about 10 minutes, and then I can deal with the cat. So. Um, as the title goes, this is the Lexham Septuagint. There's already a few videos on this book, but I don't think there's a video yet on someone who's actually read it yet. Just came out in January. It's now May 7th. I have it right here. Okay, 9 by 6, about an inch and a half thick. You can see I have a marker in it. I'm only, let's see if you can see that. The camera's kind of shining. Can't really see my marker, can you? Oh, there you go, a little bit. I'm about halfway through. I got it end of January, and I'm only halfway through. Um, this is a very, I call it an exhausting text. It's got anything you could think of that was part of the Greek text whenever. Um, Basically, everything that's in Vaticanus and a couple extra stuff like Enoch and stuff like that is in here. A couple of alternate readings of Tobit and Daniel, I believe. I haven't gotten to that point yet. Like I said, I'm only about halfway through, and the order is different than the traditional Masoretic text. So I'm not gonna, if I sit there and tell you I'm at Ecclesiastes, that doesn't mean anything because of the order is different. So I am halfway through. I've gone through the traditional books, the five books of Moses, Joshua, Judges, four books of Kings they call it, which is Samuel and Kings, Chronicles, and Psalms, Proverbs. I think that's it. That's what I've read so far. Sorry, my allergies are kicking up too. So I'm about halfway through. I'm starting Ecclesiastes, and then that goes into Song of Songs and Job, I believe. So I'm getting there. But the reason I'm making this video, I wanted to make a video after I read it, but I didn't want to wait too long. So I'm going to do part one now, and I'll do part two at the end when I finish. So I'm halfway through. Some thoughts. This is not a good video to be able to show the text very well, but hopefully you can see it. There we go. It's like a 10, no, not even a 10, it's like an 8, 6 or 8 font. You can see my finger where the text is. If I can bring it a little closer to the camera. There we go. There we go. So you can see, compared to my finger, how the text size is. So most of the time when I read it, I need to use my little reading glasses. So um, it has little marginal notes, not notes, but marginal direction, I guess, like what's happening in that chapters to help you along to find stuff, which I do like that. And that text you saw is pretty much the whole way through the book. It's almost like the old Jewish scrolls. It would just keep going. There's no paragraph breakup or anything like that, except for in Psalms and I think in Proverbs a little bit, and whatever else might be for the rest of the book. I haven't got to yet. I think Job might be as well. So and whatever. So, but most of the book is that it takes up the whole page. It's just text all the way down, which is a little hard on the eyes sometimes to read through that like that. Um, but what are my impressions so far? Well, the book is pretty well put together. It is. It's not Smith sewn. It's glued, and I'm not going to try to show it to you here, but maybe you can see it. Yeah, see right above my marker, right here. There is a little space in the gluing that hasn't come loose, but it's kind of like a space. Don't know why that's there. I don't think it's a huge problem. I read past that point and didn't have an issue. Could be just my book, whatever. The size is really nice. Like I said, I need to use a pair of glasses to read. Most of the time, like right now, I could read it, just depending on the light in the room and so forth. I'm an older guy. I'm over 50, so it's harder for me sometimes to read. Um, the text itself, I've read the Septuagint before. I read Brenton's Septuagint a few years ago. I found that relatively easy to read for the most part. And compared to this, uh, I find the Lexham version, two things I find with it so far. It's a very liberal translation. They really try hard to make the words very current. Um, I don't know the exact chapter, but I know it's in Kings. They talk about when the two kings were meeting and they were going to dine together. And I think that's what the King James version says about dining together. And here they call it lunch. The kings had lunch, which really, it just, I mean, I'm sure it's correct because they had a midday meal, but to say they had lunch to me, it just sounds weird. It just sounds weird. And there are, I assume, a couple mistakes here and there in here. A couple little spelling mistakes that weren't a real big deal. This is a first edition, as far as I'm aware. But when they start going through all the different kings in Israel, when I was in, I think it's the third book of Kings in this book, which would be the first book of Kings, I guess. No, whatever. One of the books of Kings, where Solomon dies, and I'm going to totally butcher these names. Rehoboam takes his place and rules for like 3 days, and then the kingdom divides. And then there's Jeroboam, who fled under Solomon to Egypt, and then when Solomon died, he came back. So he took over the 10 tribes to the north, and then Rehoboam kept the south. When they were talking about those two kings, they did in one section mix it up. I think it's chapter 15 of 3 Kings, I think. And I'm not gonna. I guess I can look it up real quick. Yeah, my apologies. Sorry, hold on, just bear with me a second. Only because I'm on camera, it's going to take me a minute to find it. Oh, here we go. Maybe it's 14. So let me just get there real quick. 15. I think it's actually. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to waste your time. So obviously, I just can't find it. So it's where Jeroboam and Rehoboam are ruling those two kingdoms, and when the text talks about them, it mixes them up. It says basically that Jeroboam was king in the south, and he wasn't. And so I'm sorry I can't find that. I should have been more prepared, but it's chapter in the teens in one of those books. I'm really not with it this morning. Sorry. So I knew it was a mistake, so I didn't worry about it, but it is a mistake. So if you have that, if you get this book and it's somewhere in Kings where Jeroboam and Rehoboam I really want to find this. This is, oh, here we go. Rehoboam, Jeroboam. It's so frustrating because I want to find this. Let me see if I can pause this. Okay, I found it. It is near chapter 15. It's actually chapter 14 of what this book calls 3 Kings. And a Masoretic text would be 2 Kings, because they call the first 2 books of Kings Samuel 1 and 2. So, but in this Lexham Septuagint, under 3 Kings, chapter 14, verse 29, it says the rest of the events of Rehoboam. I'm sorry, I know I butchered that. Rehoboam and all that he did. Look, are these not written in the document of the events of the days belonging to the kings of Judah? Sorry, I keep doing that because of New Testament. Sorry, Judah. There was battle between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all the days. Rehoboam slept with his fathers. He was buried with his fathers in the city of David. Abijam, his son, ruled in place of him. So Rehoboam was Solomon's son who ruled in the south. So that's what that chapter just said. It said that Rehoboam was the king of Judah, and he warred with Jeroboam from the north. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 14. Chapter 15 starts off with, in the 18th year of the rule of Jeroboam, son of Nebat. That means he's referring to the king in the north. And the way that Kings works in Chronicles, I think, too, is when they talk about each kingdom, they talk about when they came and took charge or ruled in reference to the other kings, so you would know about what time that happened, because they didn't really have years that they went by, like 1979 or 1999 or whatever, 2010. They didn't really do that so much. They compared it to when somebody else was ruling, so you could use that as a cross reference. So in the 18th year of the rule of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, so the king of the north, Abjam, who was Rehoboam's son, remember it said that right before this in chapter 14. Abjam, son of Jeroboam, became king over Judah. So it's a mistake. It's a mistake. Chapter 15, 3 kings is a mistake. So if you have this book, you should probably cross it out and put in Rehoboam just so you have it. That's what I would do. It's not the first Bible or text I've had that's had a mistake. The modern English version, which I'm a big fan of, has a mistake in Isaiah. I think it's chapter 55. And I made that little ink change when somebody pointed it out. Not a big deal. When first editions come out, this happens. So I'm not going to fault it for that. That's just I wanted to point that out. The reason I'm pointing it out is because I want you to know that I've read this. I'm not just saying I read it. I read it. So, like I said, I'm about halfway through. I'm starting Ecclesiastes. Excuse me. So on page 769. I'm on page 769 of this is going to be bad. I'm on page 769. I think it's what is it? 14 something. 1482. So I'm not even really halfway there yet. I'm just about halfway. So I've already gone 11 minutes. I don't want to go more than 15. So this book, and I really like the way it's weighted really nice, and it has everything in it. I'm a big fan of the Greek text for the Old Testament. However, I do want to say that besides that, in the liberal, kind of like more liberal modern translation, the poetry is gone. If you read Psalm 23 in the Masoretic or Psalm 22 in the Greek, the Lord is my shepherd, which I'm not going to read to you because I don't know if I have time, but it's not as poetic. In fact, you know what? I will read it to you. Let me just pause. Okay. First off, Brenton's Septuagint numbers the Psalms like the Masoretic text, and Lexham's doesn't like the Greek is supposed to be. So that's a good thing for the Lexham. Sorry, I have my light on so I can read the text. So let me read the more traditional one, which I think is more traditional, which is the Brenton Septuagint, Psalm 23. The Lord tends me as a shepherd, I shall want nothing. In a place of green grass, allergies, I'm sorry. In a place of green grass, there he has made me dwell. He has nourished me by the water of rest. He has restored my soul. He has guided me into the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, even if I should walk in the midst of the shadow of death, I will not be afraid of evils, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, these have comforted me. Thou hast prepared a table for me in the presence of them that afflicted me. Thou hast thoroughly anointed my head with oil, and thy cup cheers me like the best wine. Thy mercy also shall follow me all the days of my life, and my dwelling shall be in the house of the Lord for a very long time. Now let's read Psalm 22 of the Lexham Septuagint. The Lord shepherds me, and nothing will be lacking for me. In a place of tender grass, there he causes me to dwell. At a river of rest he nourishes me, he turns around my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness on account of his name. For even if I should go in the middle of the shadow of death, I will not fear evil things, because you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they exhort me. You prepare before me a table opposite those who afflict me. You anoint my head with olive oil, and your drinking cup is satisfying as the best. Your mercy will pursue me all the days of my life, and my dwelling will be in the house of the Lord for the length of days. So now that I've read it a couple of times, it's not as bad as I originally thought, but I still like Brenton's better. And that's just really my overall impression so far of this book is, if I had to choose a text, I would choose Brenton's text still. I don't think Lexham's is bad. It's just a little more literal, so the words don't go together as well, and that's been kind of the flow of the whole book. More so in Psalms, because it's more supposed to be poetic. I notice it more. In the Kings and the first 5 books and everything, it's not as bad. But in Psalms, I definitely notice it. But my overall impression so far, because I'm running out of time on the video, I would still say it's definitely worth the price. It's definitely worth having. Definitely good for reference. Reading it, though, is a little tough. I'll give you my last impressions probably hopefully the next month or two when I finish the rest of the book. It's probably going to take me a couple months. So hopefully it wasn't too boring. But basically my overall impression is, so far Brenton's is better. But I like the size of this book. I like the way it's put together. It has extra books in it, which is cool. And I think it's definitely worth it so far. So thanks for watching.